We had spoken last week, the Torah had spoken about the Bechorim, the firstborn. Initially, they were supposed to be the officiants, but because of the Chet Egel, because everybody was involved in the golden calf, they were disqualified, and the Levium actually took their places as officiants. And there was a whole calculation. There were 22,000 Levium, but there were 22,275 firstborn. So the number that was the equivalent, the parallel number, they were considered redeemed. And the additional 274, they had to give machzeh shekel. The 5 silver coins, pidyon haben, like a firstborn has to be redeemed, and the money was given to Aaron. But factually, even though they were redeemed, now the Levim have to be initiated. They have to be installed as the ones in the place of the Bechorim. So this week we speak about the initiation process. So the Torah tells us how they have to be, all Jews have to put their hands on their heads, and they have to be waved, and they have to have all the hair removed from their bodies. And then the Levium are considered set aside to serve Hashem. So here the Torah tells us, take a look in Perek Ches, chapter 8, Posuk 16, 8:16, or 15. V'achrechein yavo haLeviim lavod es Ol Moed. And then the Levium will come and do the service of the Ol Moed. V'tiar tohosam, you will purify them. Ve'inaftem osa tufa, and you wave them as a wave offering. Ki nesunin nesum hemoli, because they are given to me. Mitoch b'nei Yisrael. So Rashi says, what's the reiteration of they are given? So Rashi says, nusun lamasa, nusun l'shir. They're designated for carrying. They carried the various parts of the Mishkan when they traveled in the desert, and also l'shir, they sang. In the Mishkan, the Levium, they would sing, they would say the various psalms, with the play instruments and sing when they would bring the libations and bring the korbanos, the communal sacrifices. Okay? Now he says, they are designated from the Bnei Yisrael, Tachas Pitchas Korechem, Bechor, Kol Bnei Yisrael. They are in the place of those who opened the womb. The firstborn opened the womb of their mothers. Lakachtos, I've taken them for me. Why? Ki li chol b'chor b'nei Yisrael. Every firstborn is mine. Ba'odum v'hema, whether it's the human being or the animal. When did I take them? B'yom hakosi chol b'chor b'eretz Mitzrayim. I took them to be mine when I had smitten all the firstborn in Egypt. Higdashti osam li. It seemed to be that why did he sanctify them, the Bechorah, for himself? It was at the time that he had smitten the firstborn in Egypt. Now the question is, why does one thing have to another? If there's something unique about a Bechor because he's a firstborn, that's why the Bechor himself has Kedusha. But it seems to be no. The reason why the firstborn has Kedusha is sanctified, and initially he would have been deficient, because I sanctified them for me when I had smitten the firstborn in Egypt. That's what the Pasuk is saying. What does one thing have to do with another? So here there's a Sepharno. The Sepharno says, Ki li chol b'chor. Why initially was the Bechor special? Initially, the avoda service was supposed to be by the firstborn. Like initially, Ruvain, if he wouldn't have sinned by moving the bed out of his father's tent, he was meant to be the Kohen, and he was meant to be the Melech. But because he acted impulsively, he forfeited those rights. He forfeited the rights of the Bechor. So the Bechor, initially being the Bechor, he was meant to be the Kohen, to be the officiant. But why? Why the Bechor? So Rashi, so the Sforno says, since the Bechor is the most prestigious of a family, so the most prestigious member of every family should be the one to serve Hashem. Therefore, rightfully, they should have the avoda. It's a privilege. Like we find the Bechor receives 2 portions because he's the firstborn. So having who should receive this privilege, being the most prestigious in the family, being the firstborn, he should be the one to receive this distinction, the right to do the avoda, the privilege to serve Hashem. But they forfeited it. When did they forfeit it? As a result of what? Of the Chet Egel. B'yom HaKosi. So let them have the avoda, let them have that privilege, but why did they have to be sanctified? See, the 2 different aspects here. The sanctification and the right. The reason why they have the right is because they're the Bechor. The Bechor, he says, are the Nichbodim Mimishpocha. They are the most prestigious representation of the family, the heads of the family. Each family gives the head of the family, should be designated to be God's officiant. But why the Kedusha? B'yom HaKosi kol Bechor b'Kedashti, av mashit strachti osam lepidyon hoyatam b'shvil sheb'yom HaKosi higdashim li. The reason why they need redemption is because the day that I had smitten the firstborn of Egypt, I sanctified them. Why? Shlo yisasku ba'avodas hedyu klal. What was the degree, what was the value of that sanctification, that consecration? That they shouldn't be involved in ordinary, mundane involvement, mundane chores. As an animal that's consecrated, you're not permitted to work with it. You're not permitted to shear it. Identically, they're not permitted to be involved in ordinary activity. Why? There was a great degree of prosecution on the firstborn, because the firstborn is the most culpable. Being the head of the household, there's more expected of him. He should be like the role model. So since even the Jews themselves in Egypt, being the heads of the household, being initially pagans, they didn't have a perfect record, far from perfect record. So who would be the most culpable in every family? The Bechor. So even the Jewish Bechorim, they would die during Max Bechoros, not because that Hashem would take them. Because as we say in the Haggadah, there was Mishlachus Malchei Roim. There were accosting angels that was sent to destroy the Egyptians. So it wasn't only the Bechorim. There were other things going on there. So the Jews would have been vulnerable to these accosting angels, and the Bechor would have been culpable, and he would have died. And because they are the most prestigious of the family, they carry the responsibility of every failing of the family. So therefore they need redemption to go back to an ordinary status. That you should go back to the mundane level. So it's an interesting concept. They were culpable and liable to die because it was a time of din, midas adin. However, therefore I sanctify them. Once they became consecrated, they're protected. What's this concept? Now we find there's a state called Ir Nidachas. If the majority of a community does idolatry, so the Torah tells us all the people who did idolatry have to be put to death, because it carries the capital crime. It's a capital crime, and all the city has to be razed, and all its contents have to be burnt. And the Torah uses the term shlola, tisorif. Its spoils should be burnt. So the Gemara discusses in Sanhedrin, what about if you have animals that were consecrated to be korbanos? Are they destroyed? Ordinary animals, ordinary property is destroyed. What about consecrated property? Is that destroyed? So the Gemara says, it says shlolo, it spoils to exclude shlal shamayim. But if it's the spoils of God, it's under God's protection. Being it's a different realm of value, therefore it's not subject to destruction of the city. It's the same idea here. Once it goes into a consecrated state, it's not vulnerable to prosecution. Prosecution is you prosecute an individual on an individual basis. You prosecute it. Because your record is open for prosecution. The moment you go into God's camp, you're less liable for prosecution. Therefore, at that moment over there, it was Midas Adin taking on the consecrated status. These accosting angels cannot in any way harm the Bechorim, although there was a basis, because the Bechor, being the most prestigious in the family, carries the responsibility of the family itself. So if the families fail, they are held accountable and liable for this.